Guys, I'm just going to do a history movie review this evening, and this is one of the better movies I've come across over the last couple of years. And I've seen this film once, and I've rewatched it recently to do this movie review for you. And this is the one I'm going to do today. It is called The Admiral, or elsewhere it's called Michiel de Ruyter. And this film, it's a Dutch film. It is in English also, but this film, The Admiral, roughly about 2.5 hours long. It's about 5 or 6 years old now, from 2015, but it's mainly in Dutch. The movie is in regards to, and it's about the famous Dutch Admiral Michiel de Ruyter, and Michiel was effectively the one of the most innovative admirals in naval history, particularly in the 17th century. A massive figure in how the Dutch were able to sort of cement and enjoy their sort of golden period, as they called it, the Dutch golden period of the 17th and 18th centuries. And yeah, it's a fantastic movie. It's not just about him. It's really, I thought it was one of the better historical movies, particularly if you're not au fait with the topic at all. I mean, I wasn't personally. I've since bought a book which is called The Salt in His Blood, which is a biography of the Admiral Michiel de Ruyter. And yeah, so that's the summary of the movie. I'll just get into it. So effectively, this movie it gives you a background into why he's such an important figure in Dutch history. At the time, in the 1600s, I believe it was the 1660s, he'd already been around, and he was, he'd been up from a sailor all the way until pretty much one of the, like an adjutant general, one of the ship commanders in the Dutch Navy. And at the time, the Dutch had thrown off the shackles of being under Spanish ownership for many, many centuries in the Low Countries. And since the Dutch, effectively the Dutch emancipation, they had effectively used their commerce, their advanced seafaring, navigation, technology and trade. The basis of their empire was trade, and also then sort of cultivating how can I put it, trade routes across the east, in particularly across Indonesia, all the way through to the Americas, the Caribbean, Africa. I mean, very, very much so in the colonial period, where you have England, or then later Great Britain, establishing colonies in every part of the globe. Same as France, same as Spain. The Dutch were, by all accounts, for a very small country, they did enjoy a massive golden period, and have pretty much cultivated the choice pickings, the plum pickings of those trade routes coming from the east, with things such as silk and things such as spices, and likewise in Africa with slavery, gold in the New World, as well as cotton, sugar. Like every other sort of colonial power was effectively trying to get the best choice. And what had happened as we introduced in the film, the Dutch are embroiled in a effectively a trade war, which has become a hot war with the English. And at the time, the English are effectively challenging the Dutch for their trade routes across the world. They only really focus on Holland and sort of the domestic European theatre in the movie, but when you read around the topic, this Anglo-Dutch war was very much it was pan-European. It was in America, in the Caribbean, it was in Asia as well, and in Africa too. So multiple theatres. I mean, the real man, Michiel de Ruyter, had travelled to many, many parts of the world himself to fight in the interests of the Dutch government, of the Dutch Republic. Is that being a republic as well was very, very much sort of brought up in the movie as being a pillar reason why the British wanted to overthrow and sort of subjugate the Dutch back to their place and to snuff out one of the only republics in the world at that time, along with the Venice as well. But the so what had happened there is, so we introduced into the film where the Dutch and the English are fighting. We see a little bit of Michiel saving or coming to the aid of the Admiral Tromp, who is a sort of an elderly, battle-hardened ship commander in the Dutch Navy, and unfortunately he's killed at the Battle of I think it's Scheveningen, and effectively we see then a follow-up battle at Lowestoft where the Dutch are absolutely routed by the English Navy, by the Royal Navy, and at this point then we are introduced to the government of the Dutch Republic, and in particular the two brothers, which are the De Witt brothers. And you've got the one brother, Cornelius de Witt, and the other brother, Johan, who is effectively the Prime Minister of the Dutch Republic. And what I thought the film did fantastically well is show the angst really of the country at the time. You have pretty sort of divergent political streams going on in Holland at the time. You have the monarchists who, as you can see in the photo there, are led by William of Orange. William, spoiler, would later on become the king of will become king of the Netherlands, and then later on king of England with his wife Anne. Oh, sorry, Mary. Sorry, Anne was later. So it's William and Mary. So his wife Mary Stuart, and he is. So they are very much in the minority at the start of the movie. You have the Republicans in control at the time, and Johan de Witt is the leader of the Republicans in the Dutch Parliament in The Hague, and very, very much there's a lot of scheming going on. Despite as the film progresses, we see Michiel de Ruyter become the Admiral of the Dutch fleet. He makes brilliant innovations in terms of signalling, in terms of flat-bottom boats, in terms of being able to maneuver ships around in a firing line formation, rather than naval combat. Before that was pretty much one-on-one chaos after chaos, whereas he's pretty much brought the Dutch Navy in line with the English Royal Navy by using those innovations, and he starts to win some pretty impressive battles. And we see later on that he leads an expedition up the Medway, which is the river going all the way up to London. Up the Medway, where they sink effectively the Dutch Navy, decimate the Royal Navy, and they end up obtaining the royal flagship of the Royal Navy, which is the Royal Charles, which was named after Charles II, the King of England at the time. So at this point of the movie, we see King Charles, who's again brilliantly played by Charles Dance. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know Charles Dance. He plays Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, and he's superb as Charles II in this. He is effectively annoyed that his younger nephew, William of Orange, is unable to control the Dutch government, and that he's not really in control of the country. He is an important figure, no doubt, but he's not the king of the Netherlands. He's just a prince of Orange in the Netherlands, but not the actual sort of absolutist monarch like Louis XIV in France, Charles II to a degree in England, and the Spanish king and so forth. He's not an absolute monarch at all. In fact, he's not even ruling the country. So we see that sort of conversation going on there, and it is sort of led later on in the movie that William of Orange will then marry Charles's daughter, Mary Stuart, and Mary then would later on uh, would later on come back to Britain with William at the head of an invasion force from Holland, and they would sort of instigate what is known as the Glorious Revolution of 1688-89. Effectively, is the last time that the British government changed over the monarch by force. Effectively, it's not by consent, because there was no referendum. There was no. The official narrative of that is that MPs in the House of Commons invited William of Orange and Mary Stuart to come to Britain and effectively to become King and Queen of Britain. And that was because the ruling king at the time, a Catholic king, Stuart monarch, James II, was very much not desired to stay on the throne. And when James had a child who presumably would have been brought up Catholic, the MPs and the Church of England were not impressed and were not happy to have a Catholic King of England again, which really would have put would really have disrupted the next couple of 100 years, I would have said. And effectively, this is where Elizabeth's current family and our current Queen's family and legitimacy emanates from, is from the repudiation of the Stuart line. But that is put in the film. Anyway, back to the action with Michiel de Ruyter. So, anyways, Michiel is winning battles left, right and centre. They're looking good, in a good shape. England sues for a peace. They've been absolutely decimated up the Medway, so they've sued for a bit of a truce, bit of a peace, the Peace of Breda. And so the De Witt brothers are feeling fantastic, but as history tells us, brothers who are in politics together, or in my experience as well, brothers who take on a leadership role in anything together don't end up in a good situation, because they will always stand with each other, and they will inevitably, if you get people turning on them, they will go down together, which is what happened. So effectively what happened is later on the Dutch successes and the Treaty of Breda led to a situation of peace. However, that soon changed afterwards, where there was a year, I can't remember the year now, but there was a year where it was an absolutely shocking year. Let me just double check here. It was in 1672, where effectively it is pretty much, I think it's called the Rampjaar. If anybody's Dutch, you have to correct me with that. The Rampjaar, which was effectively the worst year in Dutch history, up until the point where the Dutch Republic was invaded from all sides. So the French under Louis XIV, the Sun King, decided to invade from the west. England restarted the English-Dutch wars, primarily at sea, and then with a desire to land an invasion force in places like Vlissingen. They were going to land British troops there to overrun the Netherlands, as well as being invaded then by Spain, who were at the time in control of the Spanish Netherlands, which today we call Belgium. Then you have the bishops of Cologne and Munster, which are German states. They were little German counties, effectively. They were, because Germany wasn't an actual fortified nation state as we know today, it was different areas of Germany were able to conduct their own foreign policy, and different nations within their own right. And they invaded from the east. So effectively the Dutch were up to their eyeballs in shit at this time, and they had to rely on Michiel to try and do his best to obfuscate a landing of Holland via the naval route, which he does successfully, thankfully. However, at this time, the blockade of the Dutch Republic, the invasion by the French and the Germans and the Spanish, are having massive effects on the Dutch population. They blame, and they are instigated. It is instigated by William of Orange, the soon-to-be king, that the Republicans are to blame for this. That the Republicans and the Parliament are to blame, and the only way that he would be able to save the Netherlands is if they are able to remove the De Witt brothers from power and allow him to become king of the Netherlands and king of Holland. So not without a fight, it goes to be said, but the monarchists succeed in ramping up fear, anger, effectively using strong arm bully boy tactics, and the De Witt brothers are arrested. In particular, Cornelius De Witt, who was a good friend in the film of Michiel de Ruyter, and Michiel is very much in the De Witt camp. So he's left effectively. He's saving the country at sea as he can do what he can, but there are things going on in the country that he has no control over whatsoever. His family is targeted by these Orangists, sort of mobs going around Amsterdam and going around other cities in Holland, trying to take control in the name of the king. And we have a really pretty. I thought it was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever read in history in my life. And it's true, is that the people and the mob that was so angry, instigated by the king, and a lot of these rabble-rousers were paid in troublemakers, and were doing it on behalf of the king, soon-to-be King William. They broke into the prison where both Johan de Witt, the former prime minister, because at this time he'd resigned, as well as his brother Cornelius de Witt, who had been tortured, to get an admission that they had been conspiring against the king, which is absolute bullshit. Really, they were doing their best for Holland, but they were unable to, effectively stop four nations from invading at the time. So the mob break into the prison. They strip the two men apart. They strip them naked. They kill them. They rip out their guts and absolutely mutilate them. The death scene is horrific, I will say. And they are hung upside down on a gibbet. A gibbet is like the old hangman's, the thing you see, like you play a game of hangman, where people are hung to death on, and they hang upside down on a gibbet in the middle of the Hague, and some of the crowd even partake in cannibalism. So yeah, you have that to deal with as well. So they actually ate their own prime minister, which is absolutely fucking crazy. But this again is all part of the plan as far as the king is concerned. And this character, William, does really come out effectively at the end of the movie, despite being a slimy, it's sort of intimated a bit of a not homosexual, but a bit of a sexually fluid, I'll put it that way, character. A very effeminate man with not anchored morals, if I can say it that way. He comes out on top effectively in this movie. And as history has shown later on, he would himself become not only King of Holland but King of England, and his descendants and lineage would then go through to Elizabeth today. So Michiel at this point tries to arrives too late. The two De Witt brothers are killed. Michiel does his best, and effectively is implicated later on in the movie then of being a De Witt supporter, and the film effectively ends with William sending Michiel on a suicide mission in the Mediterranean, where the French and the French fleet absolutely annihilate the Dutch Republic's fleet in Mediterranean waters, killing Michiel de Ruyter. So he was killed in the line of action. He was threatened by the king, who effectively said, if you don't do this suicide mission, which you know you're not coming back from alive, I will not keep your family safe. Effectively threatening his family, that they would have the same fate as the De Witt brothers. They would end up dead. Which, for my opinion, that goes to show you what royalty really is. But there you go. That is the movie. I thought it was absolutely superb. Brilliant pieces on the Dutch politics at the time. The Republicans versus the monarchists. Ultimately, the monarchists win out in this due to the amount of chaos. Like I say, later on then, Holland will never really, after this point, regain its former glory. Holland was then overtaken by England, and then later on England and Great Britain was overtaken. Their colonial possessions were effectively dwindled. I mean, Britain took many Caribbean islands. They took what was called New Amsterdam, is now called New York City. They took islands in Asia, African slave castles and places of economic value in Africa were pretty much taken by the English, leaving the Dutch with handfuls of outposts now across the world. And really, they were overtaken by Holland, Spain and so forth. So really the sun didn't really rise again on the Dutch Republic, and later on, you did have different iterations of the Dutch Republic, such as the Batavian Republic, the United Provinces as they were called, as well, which was under constitutional monarchy. Napoleon tried to reinstitute a Dutch Republic, albeit a puppet pro-Bonapartist kingdom, nation, I should say, Republican nation, with a Bonaparte at its head. But effectively, the sort of the zenith of the Dutch golden era was never to rise that high again, unfortunately for them. But overall, I thought that the gentleman who played Michiel de Ruyter was absolutely superb. I mean, the guy was, the guy is not a sort of stereotypical amazing looking guy anyways, even in history. Long hair, big moustache, sort of portly guy. A lot of shouting, naval battles, and not really the sort of things that people go to cinemas for when they think of war movies. But Frank Lammers was the actor, and I thought he was excellent as Michiel de Ruyter. Barry Atzmer as well as Johan de Witt was, you can't help but like the character, know him as a person as well, which makes the killing scene ever so worse, really. Charles Dance as Charles II, again, like I say, was amazing and really did show what I thought really was the sort of lascivious nature of Charles II. He loved the women, and he tried to make up for it in as much as the failure of his father's dream of an absolutist monarchy. He was very much in charge, albeit with a sort of restricted, reined-in power. I can put it that way. He was still not he wasn't a Louis XIV who was absolute monarchy. Everything run through Louis and no one else. He wasn't that at all. But yeah, no, I mean, there's some brilliant little cameos from another famous actor like Rutger Hauer as Martin Tromp. I can't remember the guy's name who plays Tromp's son as well, but he was brilliant. I think it's Cornelius Tromp as well. The person who plays him was fantastic as well. But overall, this is a brilliant movie, and it's on Amazon Prime at the moment to watch if you do want to catch it. I can see on IMDb they've given this a 4 out of 5, and generally there are some very favourable reviews for this movie, which I think is very, very fair, because when this came out, this was not really lauded as a game-changing movie, but I like to think that this was absolutely epic, and since it's come on to streaming platforms and also DVDs, I think that this got a newfound appreciation. I'm going to give this movie overall a 4 out of 5 stars, because I thought this is something new I'd never seen before in terms of like naval warfare as well, which is brilliant. A very, very interesting historical character. I think I think that the sub current of the film, which is republicanism versus monarchy, or as you could say, central control, government control, is very, very important. Particularly in today's world, where things in particularly the world in which we've been living in the last 2 years, we've been living in a bit of a top-down controlled sort of nations, really, and we don't want to be going back to that. And this goes to show you that with enough pressure, that unfortunately freedoms and representative government can be rolled back by people who are ambitious and control the levers of power, like William of Orange did in this movie. And ultimately, it's brilliant. The guy who played him was superb acting. The character was brilliant. He is a bit of a not a nice guy, put it that way, in the movie. But I thought he came out on top in the movie, and it was great to watch anyway. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. Let me know what you think of the movie, and enjoy it if you can on Prime. It is a long watch, but trust me, you'll understand it. The Dutch is not that off-putting really either. In terms of there's subtitles, but I was told a long time ago, and I've seen it written many times, that apparently for an English speaker, Dutch is one of the easiest languages to understand as a second language. Lots of similar words and sentence structure as well, so it won't be too off-putting whatsoever from an English speaker's point of view, having to watch subtitles. But I think the movie is of such quality anyway that wouldn't matter. So I hope you enjoy it, and let me know what you think, and if you can like the video and